Manchester City have just lost 4 games in a row for the first time ever under Pep Guardiola. But is this truly the beginning of the end of his Manchester City dominance? Well, of course, right everyone, it is Finn here. Welcome back to a brand new video where today we're going to be taking a deep dive into Pep Guardiola and whether Manchester City are finally finished with, well, winning absolutely everything. I don't think people quite understand how big it is for City to lose 4 games in a row. I mean, it's the first time ever it's happened in Pep Guardiola's career and the first time it's happened at the club since 2006. I mean, it's almost as rare as Jose Mourinho actually behaving in a press conference. It just does not happen.
I think the yellow card is fair because I was rude, but I was rude to an idiot.
I mean, to understand how big this is, I think we have to go all the way back to the beginning. The date was the 1st of February 2016, where Pep Guardiola had signed to be the brand new manager of the Citizens, after rather fruitful spells at both Barcelona and Bayern Munich, winning absolutely everything that was available to him. When I say that, I mean he's always won trophies like they've already belonged to him.
But this action is really incredible. Incredible.
Little did we know in 2016, when he signed to be the club's brand new manager, how much he would absolutely dominate the football world. I mean, since then, he's won 6 out of 7 Premier Leagues, 2 FA Cups, 3 Community Shields, 4 Carabao Cups, the club's first ever Champions League, a Super Cup, and a Club World Cup within just 8 years. I mean, he has absolutely dominated the football world, and we can't deny it, even being in the conversation of maybe the best football manager of all time.
No, I don't think so.
I mean, whether you've got a preference for a different manager, you cannot deny it, he's been wildly successful. And not only has he changed Manchester City's history, he's changed football as a whole's history. And as a Manchester United fan personally, it has absolutely sucked, but I have to admit, he has done it. I mean, it's like watching someone steal your baby and turn them into a Harvard graduate. I'm quite spiteful and quite jealous, but you know what? They've done quite well.
A bit of a weird analogy.
No longer are they a club where Manchester United's veterans go to retire anymore, but they are a club that has handed Manchester United a handful of goals on multiple occasions. But things seem to be changing a tiny bit, losing to Tottenham Hotspurs in the Carabao Cup, being knocked out of the competition, losing to Bournemouth, losing and getting demolished by Sporting in the Champions League to Ruben Amorim, who will now compete with them in the Premier League as the new Manchester United manager, and also losing to Brighton. Have they really lost their cutting edge, and has Pep Guardiola finally lost it? Now, I do have to give Pep Guardiola some credit here. His team has been absolutely plagued with injuries, mainly his Ballon d'Or winning midfielder Rodri. I mean, as we know with the club, he is widely successful when he does play, as Manchester City only have a 1.23% losing percentage when they do have him on the pitch. And without him, it's shocking, they lose 36% of the times.
What did he say?
It has been an absolutely nightmare injury. They've even gone long spells without Kevin De Bruyne, maybe one of the best midfielders the Premier League has ever seen. And let's be honest, when he's injured, I mean, Haaland really does play a game of hide and seek. And in terms of defense, missing both Ruben Dias and John Stones for long periods of times, their defense at times has been rendered absolutely useless. But in terms of the money that this club has spent, and in terms of the depth that they do have, is losing 4 games in a row really an acceptable answer?
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, this is a team that has just become the first ever to win 4 Premier Leagues in a row, and now that 4 represents the amount of games they've lost in a row, it's just not right. Now, of course, it is also highly possible that Manchester City are, dare I say, just having a rough patch. I mean, even Guardiola has stated himself that winning 6 out of the last 7 Premier Leagues, a rough patch is going to happen to absolutely anybody. Although saying that, getting knocked out the Carabao Cup early by Tottenham Hotspurs, although they're bogey team over the last few years, it is still way not acceptable for a team of this caliber. Saying that though they are only 5 points behind Liverpool on the Premier League table, still plenty of time to catch up, and although no, they aren't sitting all pretty in the Champions League table either, it is a brand new format, some teams are still obviously adjusting to it, and there's still a lot of time for them to still get an automatic qualification spot, if not a playoff spot itself. So of course there's so much time to catch up, but at the end of the day, every team does have its weak moments.
It's not good.
But getting back to some criticism, as I stated earlier, losing 4 in a row still isn't good enough for this team. At the end of the day, they've got enough squad depth to still be able to compete at a very competitive level. Although looking at that loss versus Brighton, they did play the likes of 19-year-old. Well, I'm not quite sure I can say that player's name on YouTube.
I map?
Usai.
They still had a lot of depth on the bench defensively, with the likes of Nathan Ake, with the likes of Akanji. That losing to Brighton, once again, I'm still not happy with that result for them. And looking at them overall, in the 4 losses that they've gotten, it's not like they've by far been the worst team, and that's quite worrying. I mean, in fact, they've really dominated a lot of those games, and they have been by far been the better team in a lot of them. But at the end of the day, their end result just wasn't good enough, and they've absolutely crumbled in the dying minutes of those games.
Yeah, first half was good, but second half was shit.
Which is a major concern for this team. And you know what else is a major concern for this team? Pep Guardiola's future at the club. Now, of course, we've known for a few months now that he has said that he is still undecided on whether he will be here long term or whether he'll be leaving in the near future. Now, obviously, take that from a Manchester United fan, that when your best manager of all time does leave your club, it can be quite worrying. Of course, we're still kind of picking up all the broken parts at Manchester United from when Sir Alex Ferguson left, and I am worried for Manchester City in terms of whether they have to do the same.
No, God! No, God, please, no!
And I haven't even spoken about the 115 charges yet. It must be a stressful time to be a Manchester City fan at the moment. But of course, ignoring the future for now and talking about this current season, it's difficult to say whether things will get better before they do get worse, because as we know, it's been spoken about many a times, but players are being way overplayed nowadays. And Guardiola even spoke about this recently. I mean, we are currently in mid-November and they've already played 18 games, and that's ignoring the 4 to 6 international games that players have already played. And as we know, November to December can be absolutely stacked. Players are picking up injuries, the players are getting tired, and at the end of the day, Manchester City, they are not invincible, if you want to put that in football terms. I mean, we've seen it over the years. Arsenal are also struggling this season when it does come to injuries. We've seen Liverpool 3-4 years ago, they struggled with injuries. Any team that does struggle with injuries, it is inevitable that they will fall apart. They are not indestructible.
We're just normal men.
And to have played, 25 to 30 games before Christmas has even began, let's be honest, players are going to be so tired. And as I said, for this Manchester City team, it's hard to say whether things will get better before they get worse, to be honest. But it is also completely possible that everyone is just overreacting. 4 losses in the world isn't the end of the world. As I mentioned earlier, they are still in contention for most major competitions, and they could easily bounce back. For all we know, Pep Guardiola is a very intelligent man.
I prefer the sex.
He could be building things together and they could absolutely whack everyone after this international break. Of course, only time will tell, but you know what, as Pep Guardiola has stated himself, he is closer to the end of his Man City career than he is to the beginning of it. And I would suggest that Manchester City really do take some kind of action in terms of building for the future, even in terms of management, because it is not an easy time at the moment. But of course, let me know what your thoughts about Manchester City are down below. Do you think Pep Guardiola is on his way out in the next year or two? Is this the end of Manchester City's dominance? As I said, as a United fan, I wouldn't hate it, but it has definitely been a special era in the Premier League, especially for the Manchester Blues. But of course, guys, let me know what you think down below. Of course, do subscribe if you're not subscribed. The channel obviously appreciates the growth. Do leave a like down below, and this has been Finn, FYNN.